Well, first and foremost, I'm so happy that I was able to get here in time for my time slot here. And it's a joy to be back connected with WAVES. It's been a few years since we held the WAVES conference at Maharishi International University in Fairfield, Iowa. Louder, louder. Okay, I just have to get closer. All right, thank you. So this is a topic very dear to my heart. When Maharishi asked myself and a few others to create the women's wing of the TM organization. And since that time, I've been very focused on this value of Parashakti, and so beautiful as a result of Maharishi's beautiful perspectives into Vedic science. I have found it to be a very fascinating topic. So, all right, so then from the perspective of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi's comprehensive insights into Vedic science, we'll explore the inevitability of both conflict and conflict resolution as the domain of Parashakti, the creative and evolutionary force within the field of pure consciousness, the fundamental field of existence. This understanding is grounded in the structure of consciousness itself, which consists of two interdependent and yet opposite values that coexist simultaneously in a state of equilibrium. These two opposite values are Purusha, unmanifest silence, and Parashakti, unmanifest potential dynamism. Both Purusha and Parashakti are Nitya and Aparasheya, eternal and uncreated. So Parashakti is one aspect of an eternal, unmanifest duality that together with the silent, unmoving Purusha aspect of reality, constitutes the unified wholeness of everyone's consciousness. And as we'll see, its Parashakti is both the source of conflict and the means by which conflict is ultimately resolved on every level of existence. Parashakti as unmanifest potential dynamism can be appreciated by the analogy of the empty space of the hollowness of a seed, which contains within it the memory of every aspect of the entire tree. In the same way, the infinite unbounded silence of pure consciousness has within it the holistic memory of all the laws of nature that give rise to manifest creation. It's this holistic memory of all the laws of nature that is unmanifest Veda. Parashakti inspires a field of unmoving silence, a vacuum state, to flow as unmanifest Veda, which in turn precipitates as material creation. Parashakti in essence gives birth to the infinite diversity of the universe, which is inherently made up of pairs of opposites, and is therefore the source of inevitable conflict in the manifest world. But how does this occur? Why and how does manifestation arise from a field of silence and its unmanifest potential dynamism existing together in a perfect state of equilibrium? It's because the fundamental quality of transcendental pure consciousness is that it is awake to its own existence. And being awake to itself, it assumes the role of the observer, the process of observation, and the object of observation. And while these three conceptual divisions are nothing but silence itself, where am I here? They create relationships in this field of singularity, and thereby an inevitable flow within the silent unified field of transcendental consciousness. This flow of attention, as silence observes its different aspects, creates reverberations in the field of silence, and those frequencies build upon each other until they precipitate as force and matter fields, and eventually as the human physiology, and precipitating on as the entire universe. All of creation emerges as a result of these self-interacting dynamics of consciousness. We can also look at this sequential process of evolution within the eternal field of non-change as the result of the collapse of infinity to a point of infinity, a collapse of the wave function, a symmetry breaking of the unmoving field of silence as silence begins to observe itself. This process of self-observation ultimately allows for the dawning of Brahman consciousness, the pinnacle of human development. As Maharishi explained, the absolute exists whether anyone knows it or not, but Brahman requires a knower. So we can appreciate that in order for ultimate reality, Brahman, to be a living reality, the knower, the ego, the I, had to emerge out of this frozen, infinitely homogeneous field of nothingness. This unlocalized field of sameness must collapse to a specific localized point in infinity in order to create a reference point where consciousness can take its stand and observe itself, thereby becoming the knower of itself and discovering its true nature as silent and unified, and yet simultaneously as a field teeming with potential dynamism, the holistic memory of the blueprint of the entire creation and all its laws that make up the infinite organizing power of nature. This point of infinity, the dawn of I am or I exist, is like a portal through which human self-referral consciousness can step into its infinite eternal reality in Brahman consciousness. I want to check the time. Am I okay? Okay. Individuality is the means to an end in universal reality. Jiva inevitably becomes Brahman, a conflict-free reality of oneness, wholeness, fullness. In one move, in one collapse of infinity to a point, Parashakti creates the three-in-one structure of pure consciousness, a unified field awake in the togetherness of the knower, the known, and the process of knowing. From these three values and their interactions, the entire universe inevitably emerges. This emerging process is nothing other than a sequentially unfolding dialogue of the self with itself, or we could say a transcendental logic expressed as unmanifest Rig Veda, the constitution of the universe, as Maharishi referred to it. Syllable after syllable, hymn after hymn, as laws of nature orchestrate the manifestation of each specific value and its implied opposite value, thus birthing a world made up of opposite values, and therefore a world with an inherent propensity for conflict. So it appears that Parashakti creates the problem and then fixes the problem. But actually, Parashakti more than fixes the problem. Parashakti ultimately restores the original state of eternal equilibrium through a process of synthesizing the infinite pieces of infinity. But Parashakti does so such that each separate specific value that Parashakti created has now evolved to regain its memory of its eternal wholeness. Now the unified field of pure consciousness knows itself in its completeness. Silence and dynamism, consciousness and matter, change and non-change. All pairs of opposite values are integrated into one wholeness. Pure consciousness is now eternally awake to its total reality as a blend of its two constituent parts, Purusha and Parashakti, opposite values or characteristics that hold on to their own nature while simultaneously partaking of the other's nature. In Brahman, Parashakti has given birth to a reality far greater than the sum of its two parts. They are now the two natures of Brahman. So I think I'll stop there and just see if anybody has any points or questions. And if not, I have some very beautiful quotes directly from Maharishi on this topic that I would love to share. I didn't include them because I didn't want it to go too long, but I could share some of those. Thank you. Okay. How are we for time? Finish?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. So I'll just share a couple of very beautiful quotes that from Maharishi himself that give beautiful insight into this relationship between Purusha and Parashakti. Because once we understand that relationship, then everything is there. The whole path to higher states of consciousness, it's just the relationship between these two values, one taking the lead, the other taking the lead, but ultimately resolved in perfect equanimity, in perfect balance, not in hierarchical relationship. And this is the very interesting thing that I have found over the course of studying this topic, because oftentimes we see Parashakti, Prakriti in a hierarchical relationship to Purusha. But ultimately, Brahman, it has to be perfectly balanced. These are the two constituent natures of consciousness itself. And it has to be balanced. Other one value takes over, and then the whole value of consciousness collapses. So it's beautiful and very reassuring when considering the role of the feminine power in nature. So this one quote here I'll share with you. Maharishi said, Brahman is made of two opposite values, silence and dynamism, completely unified. There is no difference between the silence aspect of the nature of Brahm and the dynamism nature of Brahm. The union is so perfect in its complete naturalness that is never anything other than the combination of the two, the coordination of the two. That is unified field. So delicate that it is this, that, and everything together in the most natural and simple way by nature. They are unified, and by nature, even when unified, they are diversified. They hold on to their own nature and partake of the other nature. And this is another one that's wonderful too. Maharishi said the totality. I want to make sure I'm not going too late here. How am I doing? Okay, finished. All right, we'll end on that quote. Thank you very much. Jai Guru.